All right, on the last episode, I did up the power steering pump, the alternator brackets, put the belts on, ran up the cross member for the transmission, and mounted up the exhaust and the new coil pack. So what also I found out in the last episode was the radiator was full of a rat's nest. So now I've removed the old radiator here, and I bought an aluminum 4-core one. I've made the decision to get an electric fan set up, but I haven't gotten that yet. So today we're going to be mounting up the new alternator, putting antifreeze in it, and we're going to be working on electrical. So I noticed that on the wiring diagram that I purchased online, that I was missing a harness. I was missing a harness here that goes basically from here. I was missing the temperature sensor, oil pressure sensor, and then the coil wire. I was missing this harness. I'm like, where is this harness? And there was another harness that I found coming off the wiper motor area that I found in the trunk. So I found two harnesses in the trunk. One of them is this one here that goes to the coil pack, oil pressure sensor, and temperature sensor. So I'll be wiring that up. But the one that was in the trunk isn't the same plug. So maybe the previous owner found this harness right here, this loose one. This is the one I found in the trunk. Maybe they found this somewhere else for a different type of Ford. So the two harnesses do not line up, but it is 4 to 4. So what I'll probably do is I will take apart this one and direct feed it color matching into the back one there. So I'll be doing that. Another thing that I'll be working on is the voltage regulator. So the voltage regulator right here, all these wires coming off and going down to the alternator. So I'll be chasing these all back today off of the starter relay. I'm going to take apart the starter relay right here, taking this all apart. I also bought a new fuse junction right here for this thing, so I'm going to replace that. So all these wires here I'm going to be taking apart and figuring out what goes what and what goes where off of the wiring harness diagram that I bought here. I also bought some new connections, fusible link, stuff like that, so stay tuned. New radiator went right in. I'm liking that right away. Sat right in on the original rubber mounts on the support underneath, the radiator support. Hoses line up. I'm just going to tighten up the hoses, and I'm going to put in this overflow container output for the overflow container. These are old cars that didn't come with overflow containers. Same thing with the Chevelle over there. They just sprayed on the floor, but I'm actually going to buy external overflow containers for both this car and the Chevelle over there. So I'm just going to mount these hoses up tight, put this guy in, and start working on electrical. All right, so I filled up the radiator. The radiator took 2.5 gallons of antifreeze. It's full. I also I had mentioned that I was missing the harness for the ignition for the sensors. It's right here. It was actually in the trunk. I did all that. So I'm hooked up to the temperature sensor right there, hooked up to the coil pack. I need to put an extension on the one for the oil pressure sensor. That's this guy right here. So I'll make an extension for that. That runs to the back of the engine. You can see the sensor right there. And we worked on the starter solenoid. So the starter solenoid was a pain in the ass, big time. So we replaced this bus right here with a new one. Ran all the wires in accordance with this diagram, which helped and didn't help at the same time, but we did get that all together. This blue wire right here with the red stripe, if you remember in the previous episode, I said that the car was missing this wire. Well, we cut the wire loom here back and found the wire was hidden. For some reason it was cut off. So that is now running up to the start position. The solenoid going down to the wire going on to the starter solenoid is on this side. I could have ran those together, but I just like it cleaned up so that they both come on for the start position. So that's all set. And this for the starter motor itself, it gets the starter signal switch for the starter itself. That goes down to the starter, and that's working when you hold the start position on. And we tested it, and it actually turns over. So now we're just cleaning up wiring, and I'm going to be running wire to the electric choke. And then I realized that I was running a fuel line into the main vacuum coming off the front of the carburetor. I was wondering why the car wouldn't stay running before. So it was going into the wrong line. That was my stupidity. It's supposed to go into here, and that's what happens when you have this air cleaner sitting on there while you're trying to adjust lines and wires and stuff. Just start with taking your air cleaner off and making sure you're going to the right positions. So we have the fuel line right here. I'm going to run the inline fuel line into that hose that was originally going on the front. I'm going to plug that vacuum for now. This vacuum was in the trunk also. That's off of the power booster. So that just goes right into the back of the intake right there. So I'm going to hook that all up, and we should be getting fuel here in a few minutes. All right, here goes nothing. See if she'll actually start. Now that all the other goes. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. So definitely smoking, but we're gonna see smoke because of the headers. Basically the paint on these headers are not actual high heat paint. They come with shipping paint basically. So those will smoke off, but I saw a fuel leak right here on the fuel line right here. So I'm gonna tighten that up. Let me take a look over here on this side, see if we got any other leaks. Let's take a look underneath, see if we have any fuel leaks or oil leaks or antifreeze leaks. We have antifreeze leaking right there. Where's that coming from? All right, let me see where that's coming from. All right, so fix the fuel leak. I might take that fuel line apart again before I start it again and make sure it's not leaking whatsoever. But I noticed that I was leaking from behind the water pump a little bit and a little bit on the intake gasket right there. So you can see it's kind of wet right there on the intake gasket, the rubber gasket. So I torqued down the intake again. It was actually loose, not loose, but I was able to get like a half a turn each bolt on the intake. And then I went around the water pump and it was the same thing. It was a little loose all the way around. So I got to work on that, tighten everything up. But it runs. Now I just got to tighten up any leaks. I might have to hopefully not take off the intake manifold again. But if I have to, I will, just to make sure, because now the car's running. Getting the timing down perfectly is also something I want to get done. But it runs, turns over by key. Everything's wired properly. So I got to say overall today was a good day. It runs now. Just got to figure out the linkage to the carburetor still. The linkage to the carburetor from the gas pedal, like we talked about in the last episode. I got to figure out this here to get an extension on this piece here, or replace the whole throttle body, or excuse me, the throttle linkage itself. I got to get an extension on this oil pressure sensor. Basically just got to cut this off, reattach it with a piece of white wire to send it back to that oil pressure sensor on the back of the block right there. What else? Yeah, that's it. On the next episode, I'll probably be working on tightening up everything, make sure there's no leaks of antifreeze. And I want to get the steering box back in so I can run these power steering hoses to the power steering pump. And that's about it. I'm just happy that we got it running, turning by key. Thanks for watching.